Good evening, sir. Sir, I was just going through some smart contract tutorials on YouTube, and when they what they did was when they had to store several objects of the same type, instead of using an array, they tended to use a map. So I was confused why they were doing that.
So repeat your question again. So generally, so first let's try to take in perspective what is an array.
An array is where we can store multiple objects of the same type.
Okay, what is a map?
A map is basically a mapping from one type to the other where we can store objects.
One type to other or what?
Like sir, like we can have a like instead of arrays where we access elements by their indexes with maps, we can like specify what we will be using to access them.
Correct. So if somebody is studying array and somebody is using map, why they will go for a map? Let's say you
If
want.
they don't, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I think you have found your answer. Go ahead.
If they don't want to use indexes for accessing the elements.
So again, take certain things in perspective. When you will see, it's all about use case. Data structures are nothing about, but what your use case demands and how you can use those structures so efficiently your use case can be handled, whether in terms of latency or whether in terms of performance. Correct. That is all about data structure, how you should structure your data so that how you can easily input the data and how you can easily access the data on demand.
Yes.
So the only difference between accessing a data from an array and accessing a data from a map, from access point of view, not from writing point of view, and not from mechanism of whether it's a last in, last out, last in, first out, or all those stuff. The very pure reasons for using map blindly is if you want to reference something by the key itself. Correct.
Yeah.
In array, there's no value of key value mapping. You need to address it via index. But if you use cases, you do not know the index, how will you access it? So if you know the key and you can access it via key, we'll go and take the key and access the value out of it. It will be O1, right? Direct key value, it will be O1. In terms of array, if you do not know the key, you just know indexes. Firstly, you require to scan all those things, find your key. It is not O1. So
yes, sir. Okay.
That will be the only valid reason. Apart, like there may be other reasons also, but from whatever you have told, I think this could be a reason. So always try to look into what your use case is and how efficiently data input and data egress can happen or data read can happen.
All right, sir. Thank you.
You can lower your hand. Anyone else? Vishweshwar, yeah, probably I will, if people do not ask much question, and we will take question probably at the end of the session. But the first preference would be to cater any questions which are related to the session. And in case there is no question which are related to what has been taught previously or around blockchain, we can take other questions also. We can talk also about cricket also, we'll talk about Kohli's form also. Yeah, Swapnil, go ahead.
So I wanted to ask about how Omer blocks end up existing in the blockchain, like multiple solutions to a block.
Okay. So Omer block, people who don't understand what Omer block is another name for uncle block. Have you all got information, right? What is uncle block? What is Omer block?
Yeah, we were explained some basics about that.
Okay. Do you understand what is heaviest chain and longest chain? What is the difference between a heaviest chain and a longest chain?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, so see, I will go a little bit deep in order to first cater to your question. There are certain more things which I would like you all to know before answering that question. So when Bitcoin started, right, Bitcoin started with the concept of longest chain. So in case there are two competing chain, whatever is the longest chain will become the source of truth or will be accepted. In Ethereum, concept of longest chain does not exist. It exists, but in a different form. In Ethereum, concept exists as heaviest chain. What heaviest chain? For that idea, just park for a second, but try to understand it is not the longest chain in Bitcoin, which is as same as the longest chain in Ethereum. Ethereum comes with a concept of heaviest chain. In Bitcoin, the blockchain timing was 10 minutes or the block mining time was 10 minutes. Now, in Ethereum, the block mining time is 15 seconds. When block mining time was reduced to 15 seconds, what was also done was the mining algorithm or the puzzles were also diluted so that they can mine answers in 15 seconds. And when those puzzles were diluted, it means probability of people solving the puzzle, more than one people solving the same puzzle will be more. Correct? The chances of people mining a correct block in Ethereum within 15 seconds is more than people mining a correct block in Bitcoin within 10 minutes. So chances of correct block collision is very high in Ethereum. Also, in order to make system better in comparison to Bitcoin and Ethereum, people did realize that in Bitcoin, if you are solving the puzzle correctly, also chances that your block may not be accepted because somebody has either solved earlier than you or has solved at the same time, but his block propagation has gone at a more rapid pace in comparison to you. So, and only the miner blocks were getting, the people who are mining the blocks were getting incentive. So there was no other way of incentivizing other people. And it acts as a discouragement for other people who have been able to solve the block correctly. In order to cater to all these retrospective items, one, how to incentivize people still who are solving the correct block but are not getting onto the main chain. Possibility of more than one people finding a block solution or solving the puzzle or getting a correct block more. Chances of two conflicting blocks is more. So Ethereum introduced the concept that we will actually incentivize other miners also for solving the block correct, but are not getting introduced into the main chain. So that's how they introduced the concept of uncle block. Community later on decided to take a more agnostic name instead of calling uncle because it has a masculine connotation. They did go ahead with a concept. They did go ahead with a name which is Zomer block. Now, ultimately, the concept of Omer block is to incentivize other guys also who are able to mine the block. Incentive is not at the same level as people who are mining the block and getting introduced into the main chain. And also it started one more aspect that since there are other people who have mined the block, let's start introducing the block in the chain, but not in the main chain, but as branches of an existing block. So in doing so, the chain is increasing in length as well as chain is increasing in breadth. So now that instead of considering as the longest chain, in case there is the same length, the concept of heaviest chain started to get propagated or people started to use that chain and that's what written in the algorithm. So in case now the two chain have same length, the valid chain will be determined by the how many branches or how heavy it is. So that is all concept of uncle block and Homer block. Any further questions, Swapnil?
No, sir, I got it.
Probably I will try to take it in a more detail, right? There is one more session of Ethereum which is pending. I will see if I can take this particular thing in a more detail because it is a very interesting concept. There are various mathematics associated with uncle block, how mining happens around uncle block, how miners are getting incentivized, uncle miners are getting incentivized. What is going to happen in case of proof of stake will Omer block still exist or not? So I will try to take all these things into a different session altogether. It's a very interesting piece to explain. Any other question? How many of you have started to write a smart contract? Good, Sanyam. Anybody else? Everybody is writing in Solidity, or anybody has tried Viper also? Or any other language? I do not know currently are people writing smart contract in other languages. Okay, 4 people. Okay, you all can bring down your hand. Anybody who has run their own Ethereum node, tried to connect to a mainnet? No one. Swapnil, Sam, you all did not got curious enough to run your own node.
No, sir.
Okay. Apart from Ethereum, apart from this session, any of you have been looking into any other blockchain?
Sir, I tried to look into Solana, but then I saw it was using Rust, and I like Solidity more than Rust, so I stick with Ethereum.
Okay. Anybody has worked on Polygon? Prayam, have you also tried running Solana node, or it is you have just looked into the programming aspect?
So just the programming aspect.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
So Vishweshwar, I think you can go ahead and ask your question. I do not think so guys are having any question around the subject.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, so one thing I still haven't explored much is like NFTs and that world. Can you like speak about that and like if that's going anywhere? Because I see a lot of like, well, at least content creators try to like boost it, but then the value just dies out like after some time.
So do you want to my commentary on? See, my commentary is not going to make any difference in the world of NFT, right? So, but do you want?
Yeah, but I just want your like thoughts on it and like if it's something that you think will be profitable in the future, or is it just like a one-time thing?
See, NFTs are going to stay. Whether it is going to be as much as profitable or whether they are going to be as much as value creation as being touted about, that is something very much debatable. And We can discuss it at length, but NFT as a concept is going to stay. That is my understanding. There are a lot of practical use cases in future which are going to be around NFT. NFT as a way of art and expressions are going to stay. NFT as a way of people buying and selling digital content or going to access it. From technical perspective, it is going to stay. Because see, lot of things have been touted as a buzzword, right? So NFT is just one of the buzzword, but underlying there are technical aspects. It is people have tried to give a name and then try to put a lot of overtone and value creation around it, but ultimately it's a technology concept. So those technologies are going to stay. And for value also, there will be certain value associated to all these things there, but whether it will be as much as which is currently getting touted, whether it will be as much as if it will continue on the same exponential path, that is something I'm a little bit skeptical about it. And I do not see buying NFT just for buying and holding it and it will become profitable in future.
Okay, so it's like for the majority right now, it's just the hype, and you think it will it'll be useful, but it won't be as hyped as it is. Like it'll probably be just integrated into our system normally.
Correct. It
Okay.
will become an indispensable thing where in digital world, there will be a lot of overlap between NFT in terms of how people access and how people give and sell things. Because ultimately it's a non-fungible token, right? It's a very technical term. So those things are going to stay. Value creation, I am a bit skeptical around it. But ultimately, if there are people are able to have certain things which are really scarce, and really it cannot be, it is really which is keep on creating is still a buzz, and people are want to have an unlimited demand for it. It will continue on that path, but it is I'm little bit skeptical around it, whether the value creation will be as much as it is getting touted upon. Same thing around cryptocurrency, right? So whether the same exponential path was there for last 1 year and then the tip which has taken, which will continue or not, that is something I am skeptical. But parallel is as a parallel economy, or probably in future maybe whole force which is running or cryptocurrency will be there, but whether those cryptocurrency will have same sense of value creation as people are talking about, that is something I'm skeptical. Like I'm not pretty sure about it. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, so sir, I was actually working on the Explorer project, and while doing some research, I found out that there are two types of clients. It's the execution client and the consensus client, right? So execute both of these clients, they require that none of the nodes should be should have more than 2/3 of the users, right? But in the execution clients, Go Ethereum actually, I found out that it has 90% of the users on Go Ethereum. So isn't that like a default currently which is existing in the blockchain?
Look, client has nothing to do with nodes, right? I did not get. So Go Ethereum in any case, Geth is not used for mining Ethereum. You cannot mine Ethereum using Geth. That is my understanding. Like I have not looked into Ethereum mining, but 2-3 years back it was not possible. In order to mine Ethereum, you do require to run a node with C++ client implementation of Ethereum.
But sir, I read that client diversity is really important because not more than 2/3 of the validators should be on the same node software.
No, it is not. This is a community driven thing. I do not think so. Such coding exists within the underlying algorithm which determines that client is coming from Go, and if more than 2/3 are on Go, we will start rejecting it. Look into the code underhood. I do not think so. This validation exists in the code.
Okay, sir.
It is more of a type of a community driven thing when they see that there is a majority of a single client getting used, they try to take steps where a single client does not start having a wide impact on the ecosystem. Try to look into the code. I do not think so such validation exists. But and also I do not think so Gets is still capable of mining Ether. You can run as a client for deploying your smart contract and run your smart contract and all those stuff, but Geth cannot still run as a miner. As per my understanding, still you require a CPP, C++ written at Ethereum implementation to be a miner. I may be wrong. My information is way dated in this particular aspect.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, Karthik.
So my question was that is there a definite way to minimize the cost of deploying a smart contract?
Okay. So definite way so see ultimately what is the cost? Why? So we need to dig deeper. Why deploying a smart contract requires a cost? Can you explain me why you think deploying a smart contract requires a cost at the first place?
So it is probably because of the space it occupies and
Is it related to space? Why any transaction in Ethereum requires a cost? Let's try to be a little bit more like if deploying a smart contract is a transaction, yes or
yes.
no? Okay. So ultimately it's a transaction which is requiring a cost. Why a transaction requires a cost?
Because it needs to be validated if it can be included in the blockchain or not.
Why validation? How cost is attached to a validation aspect?
Sir, as per my understanding, it is because of the queuing mechanism, because a lot of people are trying to make transactions at the same time, and just to get prioritized, they have to pay extra fee.
That is prioritize. That is different story, right? So it is when cost is there and everybody is trying to put in, then you would say that okay, whoever is paying more cost, I will execute it. But ultimately, why there is cost at the very first place?
Sir, I think because a transaction, we are basically writing on the blockchain, and that means blocks will have to be mined for that. And I guess that cost is a incentive mechanism for the miners.
Miners are getting mining fees.
Sir, like the gas fees that is there in a transaction, I think a bit of that goes to the miners.
Yeah, but people would have done without gas also, right? They would have told we will give more fees to miner. Why there is a concept of gas in Ethereum? Why even gas exists? Hmm? Okay, what is a very major difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum?
So
And
Bitcoin was just just designed as a unit of currency, and it cannot deploy any smart contracts, whereas Ethereum can.
Okay, so what is difference between a transaction which can happen from a smart contract and a transaction which can happen from, so ultimately in transfer of money also you do a transaction, correct? So in Bitcoin also transactions are there, but there are only one type of transaction, that is sending money or sending Bitcoin, correct? What is
Yes,
different?
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, maybe because
a developer can actually code a smart contract and just post it on the Ethereum blockchain, and then anyone can use their gas to actually initiate that smart contract rather than just directly going into a transaction.
See, in Bitcoin, what any client or node will require to compute is limited. Okay, whatever you can do with a transaction is a limited thing. The amount of compute required to go and register a single transaction is limited. In Ethereum, when you write a smart contract, what it means, you can write a piece of code. Correct? You can write a piece of code and deploy it in a public network. Now, when you can write a piece of code, it means in that piece of code, even you can write infinite algorithm, infinite loop, right? In that particular piece of code, you can write a programming construct which can allow something to be run for infinity. Correct? It means when you are writing a piece of code, there will be certain programming construct which will have more compute required in comparison to other. So it means if somebody is coming and running a piece of code, for someone, the amount of compute required would be less, for other amount of compute required would be more. If that is the case, the amount of work done by the miner or the amount of the work who is running the node for two different invocation of two different programming construct is different. It cannot be treated on the same lines. So firstly, in order to cater to it, in order to measure it, term of gas was introduced. Very much similar to if you have to take your car from point A to point B, you require to burn certain gas or petrol. So the amount of gas or amount of petrol become the unit of work. How to measure what is my unit of work which is get done is gas. Price is what for each unit of work you want to pay. So gas into gas price becomes the transaction cost. So firstly, gas is just a simplistic way of finding out how much work is required to be done. So different smart contract having different programming construct will have different amount of work done. So gas is nothing but measure of unit of work which is required to be done. Got my point?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
who did ask the question? Whose question original it was? Yeah, so Karthik, so ultimately, if you want to reduce the amount of gas which is required to be given for deploying a smart contract, somehow you will require to reduce the cost for it or reduce the amount of work which is getting done. Amount of getting done work has two things, compute as well as storage. So if you are able to reduce that, you will be able to reduce the amount of gas. If you are able to reduce the amount of gas, indirectly you will be able to also reduce the transaction cost, because ultimately it's a mathematical function of gas and gas price. Hello Vishal, great to see you.
Hi, Ajay, how are you?
I'm
Very
good.
nice explanation of the gas. I have one confusion. When we are deploying the contract, okay, at that time there is amount of work which is done, and as you correctly said about the gas calculated accordingly. But once the contract has been deployed, okay, and one of the function of that smart contract is being called for. So every time the gas amount is going to be the whole of the contract, or like it is varying from what function?
It will vary from function to function.
Okay. And if we are pulling up any data from the blockchain, will that also require, because that doesn't require anyone to mine it?
No, so it is. So see, any state change only requires work. pulling a data from a smart contract or pulling a data from a node does not require you to do a state change. It is just getting the information of a state. So you do not require to pay any gas, but ultimately you need to run a node, right, in order to get that information. So either you run a node or you use services of other people who are running a node and you access that data. But in terms of gas, you never require to pay a cost because no work is getting done. Work only gets done when there is a state change.
Thanks. Well defined.
Karthik, any follow-up question on that particular aspect?
No, sir, not as of now.
Okay.
Sir, so if we already have defined as gas as a measure of work, then why does the gas price keep on changing every day?
See, your car takes same amount of petrol from going one place to another, but petrol price keeps on changing, right?
Yes, sir, but
so why?
is it
First, I will tell you. So see, you have defined gas is unit of work,
right?
but that unit of work may cost today differently and tomorrow a different cost, because the person who is running the node for you, who is going to mine that transaction, who is going to have that state change done, has to pay electricity bill, has to pay compute cost, which is not static. So same amount of work may cost different charge today from what it may cost, what may have cost yesterday, or what may would cost after or tomorrow. So that is the reason. Other thing is, ultimately, as we were talking about, right, we started to say that gas is introduced in order to put priorities. We get your transaction mined first. So that is not gas, that is gas price. So gas price exists in case you have an important work to be done and you want to prioritize it, pay extra charge for it, right? Pay so now with EIP 1559, they have changed into a different connotation which says priority fees. But at the genesis of Ethereum, there was no concept of priority fees. It was just transaction fees. So ultimately, at that time also, if you want to get your transaction done smoothly at a very earlier, pay higher price for it, right? Not paying higher gas, because in case you are paying higher gas, in any case, he has to do more work for you. But if you pay higher gas price, it means for same amount of work, what somebody else is paying, you are paying more. So you want your work to be done, or other people will prioritize your work because they will say that there are two people, one person is paying me more for the same work, and another person is paying me less for the same work. So they will always go to a higher pay master.
All right, sir. Got it.
Ajay, one more question related to gas price only. So if you find to draw a parallel in the enterprise blockchain, like in, Hyperledger. So yes, there is amount of work which is happening in that particular thing, but because it is internal, so is the reason that we don't have any concept of gas or any similar cost to it.
Right, Vishal. So see, ultimately here the miners are not public, right? They do not
Yes.
require incentive to mine it. In
Yes.
other scenario, the miners are public and they are going to make a state chain. So in order to make sure that they are running a node, you need to have this concept about paying and so that they get paid.
Got it.
So instead of going lane and deciding why it does not exist gas and gas price, simple thing is that in an network, it doesn't make any sense to pay a transaction cost to the network, right? You can develop other programming construct to pay a transaction cost, right? But paying to the network does not make sense.
Cool. Thanks.
also a food for thought to you guys. Try to find out how gas saves Ethereum network from getting DDoSed. Anybody can deploy any programming construct on Ethereum, right? So how does gas enables a public network to stop getting DDoSed? I will say, think about it and post your things on Discord. I think everybody is on Discord. So try to post your thought process on Discord and let's try to initiate certain conversation there. Because in a public network, if you can deploy any program, right, you can do a lot of harm to the network, right? So how does DDoSing is a stop using gas? No need to answer now. Use Discord channel for the answer and discussion. Yeah, Karthik.
I actually had a question somewhat similar to this only. When we deploy a smart contract, it has to be run by the miner, right? So how is it known that the smart contract won't do something malicious to his system or not?
Okay, so the question is, can you deploy a malicious smart contract? Or if a malicious smart contract is deployed, can it be invoked or not? So there are two things, right? You deploy something which is malicious. Okay, and somebody stops you from deploying a malicious thing. Or other thing is that you have deployed a malicious thing, but you cannot invoke it. Okay, so I think it is very much interrelated. So I will just let everybody think about it. Try to deploy something like these things in testnet and see what is happening. Try to break the network. Okay, I think I do not see any more question coming up. So we will end the session. Feel free to put if you have any further up question or yeah, Vishal, please go ahead.
No, sorry, raised by, I was just saying thanks on that, but looking for a thumbs up.
So please go ahead and put your questions over Discord channel. Okay, we will look into it. Thanks everyone for joining in. Also, I will be posting over the future roadmap for our next upcoming. So I think there are 3 more sessions required, and with 3 sessions, we will be able to end this particular complete series what we are running. So there are 3 more sessions pending. The 2 sessions will be around Hyperledger Fabric, and 1 sessions will be around few things which I thought from today's question should be taken up in Ethereum. So these 3 sessions will complete the whole series for us.